Good evening and welcome to the January 3rd, 2024, I got it right, Comprehensive Plan Committee meeting. We'll call that to order, and I will note that there is a quorum here tonight. The first order would be review the minutes of the December 6th, 2023 meeting for approval. I assume everyone's had an opportunity to look at that, and I would, if there are no corrections or additions, I would ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
See, it is moved, and we have a second. All in favor? And they are approved unanimously. Thank you. Next on the agenda under old business is a report from the work group on the draft vision statement.
Yep. So we spent a lot more time taking into all the feedback we got internally from the committee and also from North Star Planning. We added some because it was a very brief vision statement previously, and some of the feedback we got was, describing the town a little more or describing what is important within the town. And so one of the things we leaned into was, saying some of the natural resources we love and would like to protect, Sebago Lake, and naming the lakes and the ponds, and, some of the parks and forests that we have in town. So taking some of those ideas, adding them in, and then, so we did send it over to North Star yesterday, and I don't know if they've made any wordsmithing edits, but I think, it is a little too long for me to read out loud, so I won't read it right now. But I do think we're happy to pass it around and share once North Stars kind of gave their any edits they have.
Sure. Kate, any additions or comments?
Yeah, I think we've taken a look at it briefly. I think it's definitely good, definitely on the right track. We'll probably maybe do some wordsmithing and rearrange some sentences, but I think the idea is pretty good.
Yeah, you all did a great job. It definitely, you hit all the things we said about being more specific and kind of nailing down some of that stuff. So yeah, thank you for all your work on it. So we'll plan on fussing with it a little bit and then maybe bringing it back to the committee for the next meeting or something.
I think it can be streamlined a tad, but I'm sure you folks will hit it with just the right amount of editing.
Yeah, there might be some ideas that we can sort of pick out from here that might wind up being in the future land use plan or another written part instead, but by and large, I think you all did a really great job.
Danielle gets the credit. She stirred the pot. John and myself moving off center, so that was good. Thank you, Danielle.
It was a team effort.
Okay, so my question would be this. My understanding was that at the January 20th, that actually we were going to provide to the community our vision. So that was the initial plan. It doesn't sound like that is going to happen at that time. Is that correct?
I think that we can wait until the future land use workshop, partly because we planned all the activities for this workshop before we knew if we were going to have a vision statement ready. And I think we have enough things for people to do at this point that, we always hesitate to not give, overwhelm people with things to read. So it might be better if we just wait until the March workshop and have that be one of the things for people to react to.
Okay, and can you give us some idea? I counted up in the original draft it was 118 words. Do we have any sense of how many words it is now?
It's probably at least 3 times as many.
Okay.
318.
At least.
318.
Yeah.
318.
We added a couple paragraphs. We talked about what matters to us as a community. We talked about how our natural resources are both our respite and our economic well-being. We talked about some of the concerns, including including some of the hot topics that we've discussed, like housing, climate, and we tried to hit on all the things.
Okay. And I guess lastly, what I'd ask, and then I'd ask other committee members certainly to weigh in on this, that we would obviously, what we need the draft circulated, at least I do.
Yep.
So that I can look at it as well. Was there any mention in this revision, as I discussed at the last meeting, my own preference was that there be something said about welcoming or inclusivity?
Yeah.
I think there is. Right?
I would say there is, but I did note that we were a little light in that area, and so what I was hoping was that when we send it around, everyone could provide their comments on how to fit that in and fit in maybe anything else that we were missing.
That's a good point. I'll throw a little stick in the fire and kind of jump on what Pete's saying. I think we ought to kick it for another minute or two here on whether we want to have a draft vision statement out in January. My vote would be yes,
Okay.
to show progress and not postpone that to a time later. It's where we are, is how we're seeing it now, and it's wide open to edits that could be received in the January 20 meeting. It's a whole lot shorter than the old one from 2004, so we can claim that. But
It's 2004, to give you an idea.
so I think we ought to just spend another minute on that. And to the minutes, just briefly on the minutes, last minutes, we had a low response on inclusivity and diversity in the survey, and it is the town's plan, the people of Raymond's plan, and what their visions are. But I'd second what you were saying, Pete, is seem to have some duty to bring that forward, keep that in the forefront. Sure, it's 10%, but that's low. It needs to be higher, folks. Doesn't have to be 90%, 50%, but it needs a presence. And so I think if we had a draft version up for the meeting, 20th, that would be great, with some more language on that item.
Yeah, and I definitely think we're ready to send it around to everyone. I just think that was a lapse rather than intentional by any means. So I'm happy to send it around. North Star can send it around.
Yeah, I just think it would be
ready to
helpful
send it around.
for the committee to see it, to be able to weigh in on it. And certainly I would agree with John that if we had even a draft or something to provide. When we talked last meeting, I think that there was a question about a script as far as talking to people. And I would think what would be good for this committee, if we're going to be talking to people on the 20th, would be to be able to touch on those points that are in our vision. So it would be helpful to have that. I just throw out one thing that in my reviewing the first draft and also in the discussions we've had, it's just one line. It could go anywhere and it could be right at the end, but it basically just says, everyone who shares this vision should have a reasonable opportunity to live here. Now, I don't know if that is a hot button or not. You know, I mean, and I appreciate what's being said as far as, you know, it was 10%, I believe, of the 206 that weighed in and had something to say about inclusivity. But I myself personally don't believe that statement, it should be a hot button. So I just throw that out there. Yeah, Kate?
I would like to say, if we're asking people for their opinions about what matters to them the most, usually people's things that come to mind first are what really is in their forefront in mind. Their taxes, their roads, how they're getting to work every day. It's not necessarily, oh, I want it to be a welcoming community. I think if you ask someone that question, they would say, of course we do. But for them to like willingly give that up as the first 1, 2, or 3 things on their mind, I just think that's a little less likely. So we may be sort of minimizing how important that actually is to some people, even though they didn't necessarily come out and say it. Just a thought.
Yeah. I don't personally think, and I'd welcome this committee's thoughts on it, I don't think a statement like I just read is overreaching as far as not being something that we would expect the community as a whole to hold as a value for the community. Whether if so, I mean, I'm sure someone could read into that statement I just read and say, "Oh, you're opening the floodgates to everybody." And is that what we want to do? But I don't get the sense that that's what this community is all about. I may be wrong, but I'd welcome other feedback as far as that type of an idea and a vision. I will tell you, and I believe I did read it at one of the previous meetings, in the vision statement in 2004, which I think had too much in it, but one of the things was, the statement was, we seek a fair and just community where all citizens have equal rights. I don't think that's overreaching. And I don't know that necessarily in 2004 they had a consensus opinion on a survey that said that, as Kayla is mentioning. However, they wrote this and felt that it was reasonable to put in there. So I think we walk that fine line between, certainly, as John said, and I couldn't agree more, this plan is the community's plan, it's not our plan. And I think we've been pretty faithful to that going forward. But I can't believe that we have to rely on the consensus of 206 opinions from the town to say that, we're going to not mention something, whether it be, where all citizens have equal rights, or that another statement in this was, this 2004 was the cornerstone of this foundation that we have inherited and upon which our future will be built is human respect.
That came from your brother.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
I remember it well.
So, I would just say that I believe that if I understand in my conversations with my younger brother, it was him and Brad that actually wrote this vision statement for the 2004 plan.
Yeah, Charlie had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, anyway.
So how about we share the draft that John, and Danelle, I can just forward that around to the group, and then maybe via email we can coordinate if everyone is okay sharing that draft at the, I think it's totally fine to share at the workshop on the 20th, just as it is, and we can get some feedback from people, and you all can also have time to share some feedback, and then we'll work on it after the workshop.
Sure. Frank?
I have no problem with sharing it.
Okay.
Basically, I think we should, because we may get feedback from people, may ask for feedback on the draft, ask them if there's anything we missed, the
Yep.
things that aren't in there that they think are important.
That's a
And
good
we
point.
might get a lot more feedback on it,
Good point, Frank.
especially if we have a good crowd.
Maybe we can provide an opportunity for them to write down on a piece of paper, or we take their input right there and then, and we can kind of compile it together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what we've done in the past with things like this is we actually just print it out on like almost a 24 by 36 or something, and then have post-it notes and say like, here's the draft vision statement, tell us what we missed or what you would change.
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
And
Okay.
some handouts they could take with them if they
Sure.
wanted to.
I'm happy to share it with the town. I think that's fine at
Okay.
the 20th.
Great.
I think we just, whatever we present to them, we say, this is our draft vision statement and the ideas. So often you present a document and people redline it, and that's not what we're going to do at the meeting. So I think the dialogue around it should be, what's important to you? Does this represent it? Have we captured the essence of what we're trying to do in this town? And just make sure that that's how we talk to them about it, rather than, can you rewrite this for us, because then the floodgates will open, and that's not going to be helpful for anybody.
Yeah, maybe asking something like, does this resonate with you, or does this capture your sentiments in an accurate way? And if not, what would you what else would you include?
And there's, like Kate said, there's going to be so much to do there. I think if we print it out and have it out, great. That does it. Then it can be a topic of discussion if people, depending on how they feel about it.
So then, North Star, we'd take that comment and put that whole thing in a blender and turn it on low, medium, or high, whatever you need to do to streamline it probably some. And but that's your feeling, is to just have it go as kind of our words as initial draft without your editing at this point.
At this point, yes, because I think just timing wise,
Yep.
and when we need to be printing all these things, that's what works.
Good.
Sure. So then if I understand it, will North Star be creating that poster
Yep.
for the 20th?
Yeah, we can do that. We
Yes.
can have that
Okay.
as one of the activities.
Great.
And Peter, I'll connect with you afterwards just to get your wording on that. Maybe we can add it in and get it back off to them.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Great. Anything else on the vision, the draft vision? Okay. Next order of business is new business. Overview of the January 20th, 2024 workshop. I'll turn that over to Kate.
All right. So we have what we are planning to do on our end is that we're going to kind of divide and conquer with staff time, so we can have people there basically from 9 to 4 from the North Star side. So one of the things we're going to talk about is logistics, and I will be and who's going to volunteer for when, and we can make an online sign up for that if we need to. But so the quick overview is that I think Ben will plan to get there for setup around 9 in the morning, and hopefully be joined by some volunteers who can help get people to just sign in. I'm hoping there will be a raffle from Rec as we were. So, you know, we can have people encouraging the people who are at the youth basketball to sign in. If they have time to do activities, they can. But if they're busy with their kids, if we can just capture their sign up, that's awesome. And so, yeah, Ben will be there in the start. From about 9 to 1, we'll have Ben, some volunteers, and another one of our staff members there to help get people signing in and help people do it kind of open house style if they have the time. We'll have some kids' activities in there too, in case parents have other kids with them. Just kind of all open house. Then at 1, from 1 to 4, that's what was our originally planned workshop time. So we will plan to do a presentation at 1 and at 3, which I put on the flyer that I sent around today. So that if we have a critical mass of people there, we can kind of, I haven't been in the cafeteria yet either, so I don't totally know what that space looks like, but I'm hoping there's like somewhere like where we can project something on a blank wall and
It's like maybe twice the size of this room if
okay,
it's
that's not huge. You don't have to be that loud.
I've held no lunch in there. It's a fairly decent size space.
Okay. So, yeah, we don't totally know what the setup in there will be yet, but maybe like one corner of the room we can kind of corral people who want to watch the presentation. Because I was joking that I'm very loud, but Sam isn't. So, yeah, so we'll do the presentation twice. We will have, and then in between that time, people can do the activities, people coming in and out, and then we will wrap up at 4. So, I can share a little more about the activities and the presentation, maybe. I didn't send things to Sue, which I probably should have, but yeah, just to give you an overview, we're planning to have 2 map activities where there will be big 24 by 36 maps on the wall for people to put dots on. One will be about transportation. Places that don't feel safe to walk or bike, places that don't feel safe to drive. The other one will be a more general, like what places in Raymond are important to preserve and what places might be appropriate for growth or development. So there'll be 2 big maps, and then we're going to have some other open-ended questions about housing types, how Raymond can address increasing traffic and busy roads. That's basically about how Raymond can promote other types of transportation, just phrasing it in a way I think that maybe fits what people experience here. A question about the economy and businesses people wish they had in Raymond. Question about what community services and facilities Raymond needs to support residents of all ages. And a question about how Raymond can balance the needs of year-round versus seasonal residents. So we really tried to narrow these questions, so they're still very wide and open-ended, but they're narrowed to some of the most important kind of topics we saw coming out of all the data from the inventory chapters. Yeah, so let me know if you have any questions on that. And we can put together a guide beforehand that we'll share with you, just like letting you know what all the questions are, and if there's any, so if you can let us know if you have any questions on what you might need to do at the event. I think generally we were hoping to have volunteers, so we can always have someone kind of at the door helping to get people to sign up and send people around, and then maybe at least one or two other people who are circulating around the room with us in case, people have questions.
I have two thoughts that I just want to put out there. So if we're thinking about seasonal versus year-round residents, I mean, if we're doing a workshop in January and one in March, we're not going to be capturing those seasonal residents that are here in the summer months. I wonder if there's something else we would want to consider as a community event, or if it's too late by the time summer gets here, to try and capture some of those seasonal residents as part of this process. My other thought is the day of the event, I wonder if we'll capture more people. Do we have any plans for, are there signs or anything that we could put at like the intersection of 85 and 302, or like the intersection of Egypt Road and 85, like hit some of those major intersections that kind of really calls to the fact that like this is happening right now, come to the middle school. Is that part of the plan at all to put any signage out there?
Sue, does the town have sandwich boards?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I could go to the dollar store and get poster paper.
Attached to them, but.
Or I could, like, do we want to like stake somebody at the intersection with,
In a bear costume.
right? Like an inflatable dinosaur? I don't know. Something to like kind of capture people day of. I don't know.
So
putting it out
the reader boards,
Yeah, we
the
can
two
put
reader
it,
boards,
we can put them on that.
and it wouldn't be too soon to do that.
No.
Really, for an event that's taking place on the 20th. And certainly there's one located right at Town Hall, so the intersection of 85 and Raymond Hill Road. And then I believe the other one is down at the Public Safety Building on
Yes.
On
302.
302?
Yeah.
So
And the day of the event, that could be the only thing on the sign, too.
that'd be great. Yeah, so the sooner we do that, I would think would also help get the word out.
Yeah, and I think to build off of getting the word out, I sent around a smaller image you can use on social media or email today, as well as a flyer that can be printed to promote the event. And we'll be sending weekly emails to the mailing list that we have to inform people and remind them about the event. And I think we had talked about getting this out to some of the other email lists, like the rec email list. If someone can just let me know who I need to forward this to
Yeah,
do that.
I can send it on
Okay.
to Bill Crocker tomorrow.
Great, yeah. But yeah, if anyone needs anything else to help promote this, just send me an email and I'll try and help see what we can do.
Can we get some of those new flyers printed again? They came out sharp. the last ones you gave us were great, but I still have, well, I was going to actually ask for your help and your help, Frank. Half of 302 businesses to get them to. So if the town could provide some of those updated flyers, I mean, I think they say a lot more than you'll do. I think the old ones were great and everything, but the new ones are like, you know, now that we have a little bit more
Yeah.
direction, I think that every business should have them again.
Could you put this on one side and whatever's on it on the other? If we get out there before the meeting.
Yeah. And I haven't been able to hit up any more businesses the last time, so we got promised maybe we could get together and just divide them up and hit them. If you guys have some time before the 20th, I will. And then for the actual event, how many volunteers are you looking for from us?
Well, this is where I was gonna say, who's planning on going to the event on the 20th? And that's pretty good. You know, I think we'll want to try, since we're going to have people there all day, we'll want to kind of try to spread it out, but we can work with whatever works for people's schedules. So, you know, if you can only drop in for an hour, that's okay. If you can stay for a couple hours, that would be great. I was going to set up one of those like sign up genius online things for this, which I can still do, but I figured we should just talk about it first.
I think
So Kate, if I understand it, would the outside of the North Star, if I heard you correctly, you're looking for circulators and navigators.
Ideally, we would have 2 volunteers with us the entire day, so we can at least have someone at the door and someone to help circulate. But depending on what people's schedules are, we can just work with what people are available to do. And if we can, I think our kind of time frame is from 9 until a little after 4, in case we need, you know, to have an extra hand helping to clean up, if possible, is always helpful. So what works best for everyone? Should I make like an online sign up that's like hour by hour, and you can just put in what hours you're planning to come? Does that work?
I would think that would work.
Okay.
Seems like we ought to have a pretty strong showing of us as possible with busy schedules. But if half the group was there from, 9 to 10:30 or something, and took the 1 o'clock shift for the presentations, and then the other half covered the rest of the morning and the late afternoon or something like that.
I can be there personally pretty much the whole time, except for my son's game, which I'll just be down the hall. But that's all.
Okay, well, I'll make a sign up then and send it around, and you can just fill in what hours you can be there so we can hopefully be covered. I think like the morning will be more open house. If you want to do like 9 a.m., that'll be helping to set up. And then later afternoon, we'll have the presentations, and anybody who wants to be like a late afternoon person can maybe help with cleanup.
Good.
And Sue, will Rec be taking care of food? Is that still
He said he
an
could
option?
do popcorn and, I'm trying to think what else Joe said.
I thought in our minutes it says snacks.
Yeah, snacks. Yeah, so.
With a Sam's Club card.
That's right, yes. So, yes, so he's going to
Okay.
do those things. If you wanted different or more than that, then the committee would need to
Okay.
figure something out, but.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone thinks we should try to have coffee. Kind of leave it up to you, as well as Sue, if the town has like any budget for.
Well, the CompPlan
Yeah.
committee has a budget.
If you want to spend your budget on coffee and donuts.
Do we want to do that?
Yeah.
I think coffee's a big draw.
Yeah, coffee and donuts
Go
will
whatever.
increase attendance significantly.
I think coffee and just like some, well, there's probably water fountains there because it's a school. So
Yeah,
A water fountain
Yeah,
in
there's
that
one.
area.
yeah, at least cups for water or something like that would be good.
Does it make sense to try to partner with one of our businesses and get a big discount on donuts?
that would probably be a good idea.
We got the village, the donut shop.
Donuts.
Ben was talking up the Village Donut Shop today when we were talking about this, and he was like, "Is anybody going to the donut shop?" He might be willing to volunteer to pick those
Give you
up.
a real break.
Yeah.
As long as he gets reimbursed.
That way we could kind of advertise them and it'll be fine.
I mean, you're more familiar with how to do these shindigs, so like, let's say we're to get some donuts. I mean, how many donuts would we be aiming for?
200?
I think we'd have to be a little careful in the morning, to be honest, with all the like
Well, we'd have
kids,
to,
little
we'd have to be
siblings
like,
running
here's
around.
10 donuts
You're
every
like, you
hour
get
or
one.
something,
You can always
right?
cut them up. You know, you can cut them in like 4s or something, so people don't feel like they can just have a whole donut. But yeah, I think like if we could get some snacks, like Joe said, like, you know, I think what we usually try to do is like something sweet, something savory, like a fruit, like, you know, little clementines or apples or something that people can grab, coffee and water.
I don't mind baking something either, just to have an additional something.
I think, yeah, I think this is sort of where either we can like go to Hannaford on Friday and pick up a bunch of stuff, but if people from the committee want to do anything like get donuts from the donut shop or something like that, we can
How
just
does-
talk to Sue about it, I think.
How does this work? Do we need to decide as a committee how much we're willing to spend, and then someone calls and prices it out, and we maximize our?
I think that would make sense.
Okay, so I think that's the next thing we need to decide, is how much do we want to spend on
Sure.
donuts, coffee, chips from Sam's Club, and so on. I think we kind of need to decide that.
Sue, is there a coffee maker there? Or do we need to like get a box of coffee from Dunkin' or something?
It would be a box of coffee,
Okay.
yeah. Because all their stuff would be packed away in the kitchen,
Okay.
and I doubt they're gonna give us access to
Yeah.
that.
And I don't think they have coffee.
Yeah, it is a
Yeah,
middle school.
probably not,
Hey,
yeah.
there's
Donut shop.
teachers.
In the teacher's lounge, there would be a
Donut shop.
massive one, half a wall or something.
Is there a
but yeah.
church
The
in
donut
town? I
shop
feel like
is-
churches
That's what I'm
usually
thinking.
have.
Big one.
Yeah,
I know Good Life obviously does big urns of coffee,
Yeah.
and
yeah, they have a
Saying
couple of
Village
big
Donut
square
Shop does
ones.
as well, so we can just price that out.
So, can we basically take a dart and throw it at the dartboard and say, what are we anticipating? Are we anticipating 100 people? Are we anticipating a couple of hundred people?
I think, I mean, if this were just the CompPlan event, I would say, you know, like 60 people in and out over 3 hours would be normal, would be good. But the unknown for me is the basketball crowd.
We'd have to, I mean, kids would just be running in there and grabbing a bag
I
of
hear
chips
you.
and running
I
out.
hear you. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
well, we
someone's
wouldn't
gonna be
want
standing
them
at
right
the
next to
door.
the door.
Yeah.
Maybe we like put out the
There'd have
food
to
like a
be
little at a
some
time.
sort of
Metered out.
policing
Some
on
taper
that.
it.
yeah, and against the
tables.
far wall.
Only the fruit in the morning.
Yeah.
Then the donuts later. No.
Or the donuts are next to the sign-up sheet for where you put your email address.
I mean, we'd have to
Sign
think
up,
that
you get a
through, 'cause I
donut.
know my kids would be like
Yeah.
running in and out of the cafeteria, grabbing everything.
Yeah.
And it would be gone in minutes. So we'd have to pace
So
ourselves.
I'll take a stab at it. So let's say for the whole day, we see a couple hundred people. And we would spend
$200.
Dollar person. like
dollar
Yeah.
person, $2 a person. So 200 people, we spend $400. Is that I'm just throwing these numbers out. I have no experience in this.
250 would be a good kind of dart, and if it was more than that, you know, we'd probably adjust, but I think like 250 would probably, I mean, for donuts.
Yeah, for
Coffee.
Yeah.
if we can,
And coffee and cups.
yeah.
And then if we do snacks, Are we gonna just do
Thinking-
coffee donuts, or
Well,
will we
I guess
also
I'm a
wanna do
little
snacks?
unclear, as far as Joe and the rec, when he's talking about snacks, what's he's talking about basically the
They've
pop.
got like a
popcorn
popcorn
maker.
machine,
Yeah, he
I
has a
think.
big popcorn machine that he said he could set up.
So we
Yeah.
could just do
So
popcorn
I'm
and not
saying-
have him go shopping at Sam's Club for snacks, which
Yeah.
would be the chips and
Uh-huh.
the, we could just
fruit
do
and that sort of
popcorn, because
thing.
that's probably much
And-
cheaper per person.
And concentrate on the coffee and donuts for the
For the morning.
sessions
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So
we
in other words, the kids can fill up on the popcorn, which they will.
I think that's a
Morning.
really good suggestion, because I don't think I think a lot of kids running back and forth, and the parents are gonna come in and say, sure, I'll come in here so you can have a donut.
I think coffee all day, donuts
Yeah.
in the afternoon. And we can always pick them up in advance and pull them out for the sessions.
That sound like a plan?
Good plan.
And a budget for that?
I see. We usually town staff usually does the purchasing on these ones, so I don't actually know how much coffee for 200 people costs. Maybe we can. Does someone on the committee want to volunteer to price some of this out, and we'll coordinate?
I'll price
Okay.
it
We can. Yeah, and we can coordinate.
But I think
on,
we need to
you
just
know,
come up with a round amount today that we approve,
Sure.
that it does not exceed X
Sure.
amount of
I
dollars.
agree with that.
Like 400 to 500, somewhere in there.
Even if you shoot a little high,
Yeah.
I'll be stingy.
I would think 400 would be more
400 is
than
a good
enough.
cap. Yeah.
400 good?
Yep.
Well, and I
anything
know
less-
for the elections,
Second.
Good Life has treated us very well on the price.
Have they?
Yeah, for
Good Life
coffee and
is,
things,
they do
so.
a lot,
Do you
I
have
think.
a roundabout, like, can you,
They
off
give
the
back
top
to
of
the
your mind, or
community.
do they, it's just all
Well, he
lumped
doesn't-
together?
very
Yeah, it's
generous
all
with
lumped
gift
together. He doesn't
baskets for the
give me a
Christmas
detail,
lighting
but the
contest.
most I've spent for 3 meals for the biggest election is like 12 people at a time is like $150. So, and I know Walt's being very good to us because it's an election, but make sure and say it's for a town event, yeah.
What did we just say for
400.
400?
I just did a quick Google, and Dunkin' Donuts, which is online, 60 cups of coffee, giant coffee thing, is $85. So assuming like 2 of those plus food, I think we're somewhere in the right ballpark. So not to exceed 400, and
Sure.
then we'll
I think that's safe
coordinate.
bet. Yeah, and bottom line is when it's gone, it's gone. So,
Yeah,
you
that's
know, it's,
it.
but
You know, and if we can coordinate, if we need someone from our team to pick anything up, we can do that. But you all know the local options are better than us too.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll follow up on food. This is the most important part, clearly, is whether or not we'll have enough donuts.
Details. Details matter.
logistics.
Eat 'em all.
That's why we set the budget so high.
So, are there any? So, I will send around a sign up thing tomorrow that'll let you sign up hour by hour. Are there any other questions right now? For us, I will plan to have a guide for you all on the activities, probably the week of the event, so everyone can review it. And we will have an online version that we can share after the event. So if there are people who just come in, sign up, and leave, we can still send them out basically a survey version of the same questions.
Great.
Sounds great.
Sound good? Anything else on activities, presentation, logistics, or publicity?
Is this going into the Roadrunner or Wyndham Eagle at some point before the meeting as well?
Yes, it can. I'm not sure of the timing. I'll have to see when that's in-house. Because if it's on the 27th, I think we could do it. But since it's on the 20th, I think that's the weekend that it
That it comes out?
it comes out then of the next weekend.
Okay.
So, let me see if I can figure it from my calendar. I didn't think to ask Melissa. Yeah, it's due from her to them by just before that weekend, so it'll be in the following, I believe is how it works.
Yeah.
Is it in, do you remember, Kayla? Is it in the third or is
Delivered
it
on the third Friday of each month.
one, two?
I feel
So,
like
Oh, so it
It would
would
go
be the
out.
19th.
that day
If
before.
everybody got their mail on Friday.
Yes,
that is.
that's true.
Although
town
if they
office is
weren't
down to
able to
about
get
once a
there
week.
and they could get a survey version or an email version, they may reach out.
But it still theoretically hits people's mailbox on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll
I mean,
have
my mail,
Melissa make
yeah,
sure
maybe
it's
like
in there.
a week or two later.
Sue, do you want me to send you?
Yeah.
Do you want me to send you something to put in there?
The box at the end.
Is what you already sent me what we should put in, or?
That
I think
works,
that's
yeah.
fine if
That's
we just
fine.
do that.
Yeah,
Okay. Yep.
yeah, because I was gonna see her tomorrow and get her to put it on Facebook and all of
Okay.
that.
Great.
Do you want, I can email her right now and request it
Sure.
as we sit here. I just posted it to Facebook as well.
Oh, perfect.
That's specifically for the Roadrunner,
Yeah, if-
not the
if-
Wyndham Eagle?
You'd send me
The
a
Roadrunner is
copy
in
of
the
the
Wyndham
printout
Eagle.
that you've got.
Well,
I'll get it to Ed Pierce, and maybe he'll have it in the paper as an article next week.
yeah.
Or a week from Friday, it could be in as an article about it.
Yeah. Sure.
Just email that to me.
I will
and
do
call him
that.
tomorrow.
Just wondering if there's an opportunity to get it into Wyndham Eagle, not just the Roadrunner.
The Roadrunner
prior
is
to-
in Wyndham Eagle.
Right,
Right, but
but
if we
like
could do
just,
that-
Oh, you mean
just,
the
saying,
standalone.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what Frank
right,
was.
right,
saying.
exactly. Yeah, we're all on the same
I'll
page.
get it to Ed Pierce tomorrow. and
Awesome.
Get it in for next week.
Yeah.
Okay, can you just quickly run the topics, transportation, growth and development? You had, there'd be 2 map activities in the morning, but.
Yeah.
What?
I can share. If I join the Zoom, is it easy for me to share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Then maybe I will join the Zoom and share my screen. Let me just mute my computer so I don't create a crazy feedback.
That would be nifty. I've done that. It's lots of fun.
Yeah, it goes like, it's good. Someone play some call waiting music for a moment. Come on, Zoom.
Come on, you can do it. There you are.
Sorry, everyone. Almost there. Let's see.
I believe I have it set, so you should be able to share.
Okay, cool. Share screen. Let's see if this is big enough or if I need to open it bigger.
There you are.
Okay, so these are the maps. So this is on a 24 by 36, so it's a little hard to look at on the screen, but we'll be asking people to put dots on places in town that feel unsafe to walk or bike and places that feel unsafe to drive. So this is hopefully will help us make some goals and stuff towards transportation in future parts of the plan. The other big map activity is where we ask people to put don't freeze, a dot on places in town that should be preserved and protected, and a different dot on places that should have new investment, growth, and change.
Great.
And this is another one that'll give us some really important feedback when we start looking at future land use, as well as some other goals.
Great.
So are they like different colored dots depending on whether you want to protect or
Exactly.
grow? Okay.
And we try and use, like I used green and blue, because we're not saying one is bad and one is good. It's, you know.
No red dots.
Yeah. Let's see. These are organized by size of activity right now, so that's why. So then we also this is one where people will basically vote with dots. So we wanted to ask about housing. What types of housing does Raymond need? And this is, you can put as many dots or as few dots as you want. So we have traditional single family in here, as well as some other types of housing that Raymond doesn't have as much of, like duplexes, ADUs, smaller multifamily buildings. We also have affordable housing and senior housing. And obviously there's some overlap here. You could have senior housing that's multifamily and all that kind of stuff. But the idea is just to, you know, generally ask people to put dots on ones they think the town needs. And then this is our other voting with dots question, which is about also about transportation. So we know that Raymond has pretty limited transportation options besides driving yourself. So we sort of framed this in terms of addressing, you know, the increasing traffic and pressure that everybody's feeling. So what are some ways that people might like to see that addressed? So the Lakes Region bus is on here, as well as like sidewalks and bike lanes, the idea of a local van pool program that would, you know, maybe go from Raymond to Portland or something. Kids walking, biking, or taking the bus to school, a van service for seniors. And then the wild card, a regional summer trolley, so nobody has to drive to Raymond Beach anymore.
What about a duck boat?
It probably could be a duck boat.
Okay.
They could drive across the Bagel Lake.
Yeah, that could cut back some time.
Could make
Want to
it.
get over to the other side?
I mean, you know, these are not all things that like Raymond would specifically be doing in the future, but I think they're, you know, think big, think about things that could happen and that, you know, could be in the comp plan even as like a regional goal, like talk to all the Lakes Region towns about summer traffic. You know, you can have a duck boat.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other questions, these will be open-ended, where they'll be like this will be at the top of a flip chart and you can write on the chart or write on Post-it notes. So we did want to ask about balancing year-round and seasonal residents. I know we're only going to have year-round residents at this event, but still I think people might have some ideas on this. The one business you wish Raymond had, this is a very open-ended economy question. You know, some people might say nothing. I don't mind driving to Wyndham, but I think it's worth, you know, putting it out there. And then this community services and facilities that Raymond needs to support residents of all ages. I think we heard a lot about like people's desire for a community center or questions about what's going to happen to the middle school in the survey. So we wanted to give people more space to kind of develop that idea. Like, do you want to see more services for kids or for seniors, or you know, because as Raymond grows, is, you know, partnering with Wyndham enough on some of these, or does the town need more things? So those are the questions that we put together, and then we'll also do the big vision statement.
Looks great.
Yeah.
Really good.
Cool.
Really good. Thanks.
Do you think the question about the seasonal versus year-round residents, I mean, that one's kind of, is there a different way to phrase it that might be a little easier to answer? I feel like it's such a big concept. It's almost like hard to envision how to answer that a little bit. How was it phrased again? Could you go back to it?
Yeah.
How can Raymond balance the needs of year-round versus seasonal residents?
I mean, I think this is a question that we put in here because we don't know the answer.
Right.
You know, so it's one where like, I think we want some feedback on this topic. I think we can change the wording if people feel like there might be a better way to ask this.
Yeah, I think your response is obviously going to be heavily year-round. You know, that, I don't know how to rephrase it.
Well, it will be this time, but if this same question is posed at another meeting when there are more seasonal residents, combine the two.
And it will go out to the email list too, which might have some summer people on it.
It's a good question. I mean, it takes us from 3,800 to 12,000 plus, right? Or whatever other numbers are. 4x, 3x jump in population.
What if we rephrased it to how can Raymond balance our population fluctuations. I don't know, like, is there a better way to like not pit, because this is like, to me, this is like year-round versus summer residents, so we're gonna have a battle. Is there a way we could say it where we just rephrase it to, how can we, I don't know, just.
Or like what challenges do, it puts kind of a negative connotation on it, but like what challenges do you experience with the seasonal fluctuation of population in town, or like,
Or how can we improve our fluctuation during our, population fluctuation during the summer, or something like that, or.
Or maybe just change versus
Yeah.
and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can say
I don't think the
and.
vast
Yeah.
number of the population of the town realize the impact that seasonal residents have.
Yeah.
Most of them don't know that we have 4 times as many people, or 3 times as many people in the summertime, which is made up of the seasonal residents, and what their needs are. We just never think about what their needs might be that wouldn't be the same as our needs. So I think we have to first let them know that we have this population, how big this population is, and how important it is to the economy of the area.
Does it make sense to break into 2 questions? Like, what are your needs as a year-round resident? What are your needs as a seasonal resident? Pick one. That way we're not versing the 2,
Yeah.
but we don't know what their needs are. So if you're saying, hey, what are your needs?
I think we're also getting away from the essence of what the question is, which is a really short, open-ended question, which is the intention of it. I think the verses, if we take out the verses and
We
just
can
make
definitely do
and,
that.
Mhm.
as opposed to changing all of it around, it still stays open-ended and it's a lot less.
I mean, we'll be there too to say, did you know our
Right.
population?
Yeah, exactly.
Goes up to, estimated 12,000
Yeah.
people in the summer.
Right.
Which is vital to our local economy and our local businesses,
Yeah.
on one side, and the other side it strains
Yeah.
our systems.
We don't want to try to educate in the form of a question, and give them too much. It's supposed to be open-ended. But if we can get rid of the verses as opposed
That's an easy
to,
fix,
or
yep.
and.
I think just and would be
And
good.
do it.
Yeah.
And is good.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. And we will have a fact sheet of the data highlights. Sam and I have been working on a presentation. We're not totally done with it yet, but I don't know how we're doing on time. I'm happy to also share like some of the highlights we've picked out if people want a preview.
Can you just scroll through the questions just real quick again?
Yep.
One business, okay, and then the next one, if you don't mind. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Kate, I'd be interested in hearing some of the highlights or some
Okay.
of the things you've
Yeah.
identified.
Me as well.
Are we doing okay on the agenda? I just don't want to take up all the time. Like I said, we're not done with this yet. This isn't fully formatted either, so with the note that this is a draft. So all this, pretty much this will also be the information that's on the fact sheet, which will probably be a double-sided 8.5 by 11 handout. So we did start with some info on what the comprehensive plan is. This is our 3-legged stool comprehensive plan that it tells you where we've been, where we're going, and how we'll get there. But I think that's a nice, neat way of explaining it in like a sentence. And then we haven't pulled data from every single chapter. We've really stuck to the ones where we're finding, I think, kind of significant trends that are going to impact Raymond's future and what we say in this plan. So starting with population, I think we're showing slow population growth, but the majority of that growth is coming in people who are 65 and older. Raymond's median age is higher than the county and the state. I think we have some additional notes in here that we can share too about decreasing household size. in recent years. For housing, so this, I need to edit this chart so you can see that this first row is Raymond. I know you can't really see that from here right now. But Raymond's median home price has increased by 75% since 2010. That's a lot, but it's actually the lowest in the region. And then just some facts about homes in Raymond. Median home price in last year was $395. The vast majority are single family, owner occupied. Most of them have more than 3 bedrooms, and there's only one senior affordable housing complex with 24 units for the whole town.
Do we know what the volume of sales that produces that number?
It's from the Maine State Housing Authority. I can send you their, I don't know.
Just because inventory was so limited in the last year that I would think that it's actually probably a relatively small number of homes that sold. And like that number to me looks lower than I would expect it to be, but.
Interesting.
We can always pull some MLS reports for
you. If you have MLS numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it kind of lines up with that or not.
Yeah, so for this project, we use Maine State Housing Authority because that's basically what they give you, but that is not as current to the minute as MLS numbers.
Yeah.
What do we have next? Again, this first column is Raymond. I know you can't see this right now. Seasonal population, Raymond is going to about 10 to 12,000 residents in the summer. That's from around 4,000 year round. About 1/3 of housing is not the owner's primary residence, and according to AirDNA, which is just an aggregate website, about 6% of homes in Raymond are used for short-term rentals. And this chart is showing the percentage of seasonal homes in all the sort of Lakes Region communities. So Raymond is about 1/3, which is lower than Bridgeton, Casco, Naples, but obviously much higher. This one's Wyndham, this is Gray, Poland, and New Gloucester. So kind of in the middle in the region in terms of percentage.
In terms of the increase in summer residents, does that, it's a weird question, but does that include the summer camp attendees and counselors?
Yeah, this is a very rough estimate based on information kind of anecdotal from the town, some math we did to kind of estimate how many people might be here based on various household sizes and average rental size.
Okay, so it includes not just folks with homes, but people who are here for an extended time, whether they're at a summer camp or...
Yeah, that's the idea. It may be, this number may be even higher if you could take in day visitors, but I don't think we have a good way to add that in. All right. Yeah, for the economy, our biggest highlight here is basically that people who live in Raymond work somewhere else, and people who work in Raymond live somewhere else. And the town's only major employers are really Sabre Yachts and the summer camps. And then we have a slide on transportation. This map, which I guess I could go full screen and then maybe people could actually see this. Does that work? Yeah. So this is just an excerpt from one of the CompPlan maps that shows the red is the highest crash risk locations in Raymond.
The hills and curves.
Oh, is that like Valley Road?
Yeah.
Valley Road, Ledge Hill, and Egypt?
Yeah.
Is that what that says?
It's Spiller Hill and Valley Road.
Spiller and Valley, yeah.
Spiller Hill, yeah.
Would it be helpful for me to label this more?
And then, is that the end of Egypt?
Yeah, I think so.
The gray end of
Yeah.
Egypt,
Before you get to Gray?
yeah, in Raymond.
Graymond.
Peeling and curvy.
So Kevin's safe.
Oh, and then at the lights.
Yep, and then at the lights on 302. Basically all of 302, but especially.
I think that's because no one knows how to use it, that middle turning lane.
Yes.
You mean the suicide lane?
Where you're literally
That's the lane
taking
where you
your
play
life.
chicken with other people who are going to turn the other way. That's how I view it.
Yeah.
And that's right before you actually get salt and sand and gray on Egypt Road.
Transportation.
Okay, so for natural resources, we just kind of did a quick summary here. There's less like graphs to show, I think, but you know, lakes are really important to Raymond. The issues are probably invasive species threats, water quality, and limited public access to most of Raymond's lakes. And I put in summer camps here because I do think this is important to Raymond, that there are 6 summer camps. They make up 4% of the town's land area, which is kind of a lot, considering that's all waterfront pretty much, I think, except for one.
Yeah, Ganderbrook.
Yep. So I think that's something that just, as part of this plan, we'll want to think about summer camps and how they interact with natural resources in town. Yeah, okay, so land use. The majority of Raymond's land use is single family, or sorry, roughly 1/3 of Raymond's land area is single family homes. The average lot size is 3.3 acres. We have the number of building permits in the past not quite 10 years. The majority of new buildings were single family lakefront properties over that period of time. And then this chart, which I think I might just put on another slide looking at it now. Almost half of Raymond's land, 44%, is undeveloped. And of that undeveloped land, this big red piece, 60% of it is vacant buildable land. So there is a lot of vacant buildable land in Raymond. The green slices of the pie here are the protected lands, whether they're open space, state of Maine, tree growth parcels.
Is the percentage based on acreage or number of parcels?
Acreage.
It might be good to put something to that effect, because you might get
Yeah.
that question a lot.
Yes, good idea.
It's an impressive metric, 44%.
It's a lot of land.
Of the land.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, and then I think we did have these slides in here about some of the top things from the data highlights survey, but this is where our draft presentation tapers off. So yeah, so that's kind of the overview of the data highlights and what will be on a worksheet. Still making some edits to that, but let us know if you have any questions or ideas or glaring things you think we're missing.
Can you just share that with me as soon as you are done? Because I'd like to use a lot of that for my Facebook posts.
Oh, totally.
Like little data points. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really great stuff. On the transportation, quick question, is there a bullet addressing pedestrian or sidewalks or walkable places in Raymond?
I think we just said there's a lack of them. I don't think we have a metric for the
That's a good
feet of
bullet to
sidewalk.
have, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Blocks are Main Street.
Main Street and,
And now, 302 up to that crosswalk where Main Street is, or the beach, I guess it goes all the way.
from
to
the beach to town.
Yeah, and then Main Street.
And, yeah.
It's not even all Main Street, which is funny.
No, it's only to 121, isn't it? Like,
Great stuff.
Great, thanks,
Yeah.
Kate.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you.
All right, I will stop sharing for now.
So next on our agenda would be to look at a date for the March land use workshop. And I guess with that, it would be in March. by that point in time, we'll have digested, let's say, the information from the January 20th meeting, and we also have the chapter to look at as well to guide us. Is there any other data or surveys or potential reaching out to groups to get any more of that, to build that chapter?
So I think, yeah, so after the January workshop, we'll be processing the data from the workshop, and we'll leave the online survey open for a couple of weeks. And then we'll be able to bring you a sort of preliminary report. And I think I need to pull up exactly my schedule, but we will be, hold on 1 minute. Let's see. Yeah, so I think we will, so for the February meeting, we'll give you initial feedback from the January workshop, and we will be giving you basically an introduction to future land use and what that process is. Then in the March meeting, I'm assuming that this meeting will be towards the end of the month. I think that's what we had talked about, the March public meeting. So that will give us the March committee meeting to show you some future land use scenarios that we've developed and get your feedback before the workshop for what we're going to present to people.
I think it's important we have a date tonight or as soon as possible so that we can tell people at the January
That would be
meeting
great to do.
that this is coming up on this particular date at this particular time.
Sue, were you able to look at the, what was it, the public safety building, when they might be available?
Oh, no, I haven't asked them.
March 31st is Easter, so.
I think we were looking at the week of the 18th and the week of the 25th for a weeknight meeting maybe this time. And Sue, we can just follow up and then maybe we can share some dates with the committee via email and get people to weigh in.
Well, and we'll be meeting in February too on the 7th. No, yes, 7th.
Yep.
And the March meeting is the 6th, right? That would be our meeting.
Yes, your
Yep.
meeting is the
When
6th.
we'd be doing the final planning and discussions for that land use workshop.
Yep.
So you're looking at the week of the 18th or the 25th, Kate?
That was what we were thinking would be a good fit.
And not on a weekend, but on a weekday.
And the only potential meeting in those 2 days, weeks is ZBA on the 26th. If they have something to hear.
Thoughts from the committee? Frank?
You may want to stay away from the 27th, 28th. That's Thursday and Friday before Easter.
Oh, and the other thing I haven't put in the town calendar as yet, because it's not completely finished, is the schedule for the budget meetings. So let me see when those are supposed to be occurring.
I feel like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would,
Yep.
I don't know, we tack it on the weekend and it seems to get lost if somebody has a long weekend.
March 25th will be a meeting for the budget.
So it looks like the week of the 18th might be the sweet spot between when the town starts budget meetings and then Easter and then school vacation and then
Would that meeting be with the planning board
this
or
would be
other?
another public workshop. So anyone who wants to come.
Well, maybe the 19th or 20th then.
Looks like 19th would be better for us. We can't do the 20th.
Are we also having our regular meeting for March too, right?
On the
We are,
6th.
yeah.
On the 6th, okay.
So I think the 19th or the 21st that week would be best for us.
I will not be able to do the 21st myself, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think also if we have, if this is a, maybe this will be like a couple hour, more traditional
Plus
kind
it's
of.
later. I'd be available after
presentation.
6.
Okay. Yeah, I think these meetings are,
5 to 8.
yeah, they're usually like a 5 to 7, 6 to 8, maybe a little longer kind of thing, with a presentation and then having people do some activities. So we might need less volunteers if there are people who can't make it.
What about the 19th?
That's what I'm looking at. The 19th work?
At this time, it appears to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't we go with that?
Okay.
And a start time, just an idea of the start time would be?
I think like a
6?
like a 6, so we give people time to get home, deal with their lives, and then come to our meeting. Unless we're gonna feed them dinner, I think 6 would be good.
So Sue, you can work with that and try and find out a location where
Yeah.
we could do that.
And get it
Oh, you
put
put
up.
it in. Thank you.
Great.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome.
So now we can advertise the 19th at 6 o'clock.
I will
at
wait
the-
for Sue to confirm
After,
that we have a
yes.
venue, and then we
That
can
we can be
great.
advertise it.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
'cause-
we're going to be in the
'cause
parking lot.
We can always be in this room, but I really wouldn't recommend it necessarily.
It's a little small, I
Yeah.
think.
Very good. Next under new business would be the schedule update.
Yeah, I can share this to project management. So we prepared, where's my Zoom? Where'd it go? Come back.
I still have you.
Yeah, there we are.
Doesn't quite
You haven't disappeared.
Although I didn't really.
So this is just sort of a project management update for the benefit of the committee. As of right now, we are, like, in terms of the whole project, we are still on budget, but we are a little behind where we expected to be because we pushed back this meeting that's in January and a few things like that. So this, which is hard to see, but this is the original schedule that we set up in April, which had this public meeting, our first public meeting actually happening in September. And since we sort of pushed some things back, we're a little behind where we were there. But what we have done is basically we can get back on track. We don't need to push the project out. We had enough time sort of built in that I think we can still, as long as we stay on track with this future land use workshop in March, I think we can still make this happen in the original scheduled time period. So this chart, basically what's grayed out a little bit is what's already happened. So where we are right now is January. We're gonna have the What We've Learned meeting. Then we'll go into future land use work in February and March. Then goals, policies, and strategies work in April and May. And then over the summer, basically from June through August and September, we will be working on plan drafting. So doing this allows us to stay kind of in that original, how 18 months or whatever it was scheduled that we set out with this project. And the benefit to that is basically that the longer, if we have to extend it, that does usually wind up having budget implications just because it's more meetings and more time. So this is just sort of an update for you all. We can answer questions if anybody has any. I know this is hard to see on the screen.
And as you say, Kate, as I looked at those revised, the plan for drafting, review, and adoption is still in January 25.
Yep.
So that really hasn't changed.
That
from
has
the
so
original.
yeah, we've just moved things around internally to meet that January deadline.
Yep. Any other questions from the committee on the schedule?
Looks good.
Are there any areas where, you have concerns that there's not enough time, or do you think you have found adequate time for each section?
I think we'll be on track. I think the biggest thing is just making sure we have that event in March. So that'll be some work on our end to get the future land use stuff ready, and then I think basically our next 2 committee meetings will have to be dedicated to talking about future land use. But as long as we can do that, we should be okay.
All right, seeing no more questions. On the schedule update, how about looking at the budget as it stands to date? Sue, did you want to talk to this?
Yes. One thing I realized when I was putting the packet together, or the minutes shell together today, is I had neglected to put on North Star's total estimated fees that were originally proposed, so that you had an idea of how much the total was in the first place. That was $86,980. Does that sound?
I can look it up
Okay.
real quickly, but that sounds good.
So last year you spent $12,000 of that, basically. This year you've spent $35,667.97, and that leaves a remaining fees that we know of to date of $39,289, and that's a number you don't have on there. But other than that, we seem to be in good shape, and I think what you'll want to think about, as Kayla and I were talking a little bit before the meeting, is you'll obviously need $40,000 in the next budget to finish out just North Star's contract, but then think about the extra $500 for this set of money, coffee, and other things the committee might want to, or look at how many events you're going to have and maybe project out. We'll probably want to have a little bit of a cushion beyond that, 40,000. You won't want to stick with just North Star's fees, because there will be some other.
Sure. And this has to be submitted to Select Board as part of the budget planning?
Yes, and with the budget schedule coming up, your next I would need to know the dollars by next meeting.
By the
February.
February meeting,
Yes.
this meeting?
Yeah.
Okay,
So we'd want to put some thought into that for that meeting.
okay, so what does the committee think? I mean, just off the top of my head, for incidentals and everything, I mean, what occurs to me is maybe 10% over what we have, so if we budgeted an additional $4,000 on top of the 40 as a request.
I feel very comfortable with that amount.
that's how
When
I
does the budget year,
It goes
Right.
July to June.
okay.
The 35K is through June 30, 24.
Well, you budgeted last year 50,000. So far, we've paid North Star 35 of
Okay.
that. But there'll be a few more months.
14 needs to get us through June.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the 2,000 from the 2022-2023, does that eat into the 14 remaining, or where is that getting? Does that get carried elsewhere in the budget?
I put that in there just to show that you had overspent for that year. If the 12,000 is what you actually spent,
And we had 10.
We had to-
and you had 10,
10
yeah.
budget, so it's- yeah.
But it's still, the 12,000 is deducted from the total of the 86 that is the cost of it.
It's a wash.
So it isn't like any of you need to write a check for 2022.
Right. No, I was more just thinking I was just wondering if,
That would eat into the,
Oh, like you
Yeah.
need to ask for
For more.
46
Yeah.
instead
Right.
of
That freak you
44.
out?
No.
that was
doesn't.
all.
That's
I
probably
went
right.
back through a
Yeah.
whole bunch of emails to
Okay.
find the 86.
Okay, yeah, it's
So
96.
I wasn't sure that I
yeah.
had-
So I've got our project management software up, and it's 96, and I think
And it's 96 what? I can
96
fix this.
920.
96,920.
I'm not sure if that counts travel or not, because I don't know how this secret interface works.
Frank?
So
Just want to know, do you want a motion on that amount?
Sure, I'd ask for a motion.
Do
Make a
we-
motion that we ask for $44,000 for the rest of the budget?
can I have a discussion though? If the amounts went from 86 to 96, we need to up that
By
by
10,000.
10,000, so it'd actually be 50, 50, and then if we wanted to add the 10%, we'd actually be looking at
55.
55. Because this, what our remaining was based on it being 86, is that correct?
That's
Sue? Am I
correct.
understanding
That's
it
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So,
I'll make the motion for 55,000.
I'll second.
Do we know as far as the schedule of how fees get paid out? I mean, is it pretty consistent throughout the process, or is it heavier in the beginning, lighter in the end, or do we have a sense for?
Yeah, that really.
Yeah, I
depends
think
on-
so. The beginning is heavier because we're spending a lot of time doing those inventory chapters, and then the two big events. So those are all much more sort of high budget pieces of it, and then it will taper off a bit when we're doing more planned drafting and less events. Yeah, so I think like there's two kind of budgets going on here. Like the town's budget cycle is one part of it, and I think there you're a little over, but in terms of the full project budget, we're right on target in terms of how much work we've done and how much budget we have left.
This is also our last opportunity technically to ask for funds while we're still in operation.
So this
So this is-
fiscal July 1, 24
To
through June 30.
June, exactly. So if
Yep.
if we are theoretically going to be done with this in January 2025, this is our last opportunity to make good with North Star. Make sure we have funds for that, because we will no longer theoretically be a committee at the next budget cycle.
You know, I think I'm just something from what I've heard from you all previously is maybe if you're thinking about once this plan has been drafted and we're trying to get out the word before town meeting, if you want to be thinking about a mailing budget or anything like that.
I think that is I think we need a mailing budget. I think that's the best way. I mean, I don't think the paper and stuff, I mean, I think they're necessary, but I really think that a physical thing in somebody's hand is going to be the most effective thing. Maybe even more effective than social media.
And I like Jackie's idea of the signs. A big sign down at 302 and 85, and then I know we've got the boards, but I think for the final town meeting, my husband keeps saying, just put up a sign, everybody sees the sign, and I think there's actually some momentum there.
okay, so let me put my administrative hat on. So we have a motion and a second for a request for the FYI July 24 2000 to June 25 2025 of 55,000. We've had a motion and a second, so all those in favor?
So are you going back to the mailer thing?
I just wanted to bring it up when you're thinking about incidentals. I am not saying this is someone who the mailings cost a couple $1,000s is the thing that popped into my head, and I know
Sure.
that was something everyone was really interested in.
So if we want to
Earlier in
consider
the year.
the mailing and adding that to the budget, then that motion doesn't pass. Does someone want to make a new
Well,
motion?
if we have two public events, correct, that we want to potentially feed people at?
Those are in this fiscal
This,
year,
this
though.
budget, right.
Mhm.
But all we have left this year is 14,000, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So North Star has 49,000 left on their contract right now. So whatever we're asking for has to cover that plus whatever else we want to spend.
Correct.
Basically for the rest of the time of this committee.
Correct. So the discussion was go 10% above what we would need.
Right.
We'll say roughly 50,000. So what we'd ask for is another 5,000 on top of that, and I believe that's how we arrived at the 55. Do we feel that we want to add a couple of $1,000s for mailing and posters and stuff like that?
I do.
So can I just make a point too, is that if, we've been kind of under in our response rate so far, and maybe we want to wait to see what sort of turnout we get at this workshop to see kind of how much effort we may need to be putting out for the next sort of workshop and how much, mailings and whatever we really need to get the number of responses and participation that we need to make this a viable comp plan. I'm just nervous that, maybe we haven't done enough, or maybe we haven't gotten the word out enough with our efforts individually and getting out there and passing the word, thinking about maybe we do need to up our marketing and outreach efforts.
Maybe it would be better if we wait until next month. to
That's
vote on
kind-
the
if we don't
budget
need the
and
number till
give everybody
next
a chance
month.
to think of other things we may need.
Well,
Understanding we are up against a deadline as far as when
Oh,
the
yes.
select board needs to have the
Have the-
budget
have the
request.
Sue said
But we can
next week
vote.
would be,
Yeah.
next month would be
If
all
it's,
right.
it's past the deadline to get it into myself, basically. But I think that it's only like 3 days past, so I think we'd be able to.
Okay, so
Deal with next
the
month.
sense I'm getting is that we will wait until the February meeting to make the final request.
Yeah, I
Is that
think
the sense
that's,
I'm getting?
yeah.
Do we need some people to step out of this and identify what those expenses are? And I'm not a numbers person, so I hear a lot of them flying around, and for me to be comfortable with things, I just have to kind of grapple with it. So I'm not saying, all I'm saying is, does it make sense to take it out of the discussion, out of this environment, so that when we come back in February and we have a proposal, we say, yes, this is the number that we're comfortable with. Because if this is our livelihood for the next year and a half, and this is the last opportunity
Gotta get it
we
right.
have, we gotta get it right.
Well, what's the committee's feeling?
Like a subcommittee? She's talking
Or
about
a
forming
work
like
group?
something like a
Another
subcommittee.
work group.
No.
Well, if we give it a chance, we can at least say, this is the number we are thinking, and we can ask, like Charisse to say, can you please confirm that that would cover our remaining debts to North Star, and then X amount of dollars in incidentals? Like, maybe if we just get a concrete confirmation that this is the amount.
I'm not sure Charisse is going to be able to answer those questions because we don't know, the North Star invoices are not even similar. As far as one's $11,000, another one's $6,000, another one's $3,000. So I don't know how,
Can we work off the total?
we could work off the total, and that we already know.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
work off the total then, I think.
Yeah.
'Cause the invoices will vary depending on where we are in the
So
project.
if I'm hearing Danelle, then if what we were able to do is come back at the next meeting, already having identified what our estimate is going to be for any additional marketing, any additional potential meetings that would include refreshments, and that there's a group that has gone and kind of got that guesstimate of the numbers, that they could come back at the February meeting and share that with the committee, and that would inform our decision on what our final budget request is.
And I think the proposal is just based on the uncertainty that everybody seems to have right now. And I don't want to have another subgroup necessarily, but if this is it, we may need to make this a priority in terms of making sure we get it, at least are not shooting from the hip.
Can you budget people who are good at this? I'm just gonna throw some numbers out.
Yep.
Okay, so if North Star is $96,920, let's say we need 10% of that as our incidentals. That puts us at 106,000 something, roughly, right? And we had 10, so you got to take 10,000 out of that, and then you got to take 50,000. Then that's our remaining, and then we've accounted for our additional incidentals. Am I thinking through that logically?
Yep.
That's the number we should be asking for.
Could be.
Could be.
Because I think the way I was understanding it was we've got 50,000 left to spend with North Star. 10% of that is 5,000, and that would cover that 10% instead of taking the 10% off of the 96,000. But
Because the 96 would cover
it's just a number.
public events, mailings, and then if we're over a budget, it just goes back into the town's budget anyway. It's not like it disappears or we waste the money, it goes back in.
It just never comes
Is everyone
out.
on page that 55 is the floor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I think I did just
Because I
quickly-
get $46,612. If I did that math, and not being a particular numbers person, that's the number I get. So if we were okay with the 55, and if we do it sort of the other way around, and we have 46 theoretically thousand, then the 55 is actually an overreach.
I think as long as we're considering that incidentals does include mailings, signage, food, anything that we need, or is the 10% is the 10% our buffer, or is the 10% our budget for those things?
I think
And you may
10%
have
should
the
be our
answer,
budget,
because
not
I
our
don't know.
buffer. I mean, not necessarily our budget, but that should be the maximum amount we ask from our taxpayers. That's my opinion. 10% is a max.
I think when we were talking the 50,000 left, we still have this 14 remaining. So I do think, let me know if I've missed that. Right, because we have dollars remaining in the current budget, but when we've been discussing taking the total North Star of 96 less spent to date, which is 47, 48-ish, so it's the 12 plus the 35. That gets us to the 50 remaining, but we still have 14 left in the current budget.
That's correct.
So we don't need 50, we really need 50 less 14.
But we had to add that $10,000 in again.
Right.
36, 46,
So that brings us to 46,000.
46.
I would be happy to put together a little Excel thing in the next couple days that would lay this all out, that I could pass around, and then could make this maybe an easy discussion.
And then that way, at our next meeting, we have actual numbers in front of, like, numbers that make more sense to us in a logical format, maybe.
And if we get an estimated price for what we think these mailers would cost, that would be a good cost to have to throw in there.
I was going to throw out that I just looked up a mailing that went out to 4,700 addresses in a different town, and that was $3,500.
And that's about the size of our
One
town.
mailing.
That I think you have less houses because that's your population is 4,000.
No, we have 4,000 roughly tax bills that go out.
Because
So
yeah, I don't
that's
know the
roughly
number off the top of my head,
4,000.
so I would say
Some of those might
yeah.
be vacant land, but it's 4,000
Okay.
something tax bills.
So and this is for the like every door mailers that the post office puts out. So they're not addressed to a person; they just go into every single mailbox in your like town, and that would probably be around at least $3,000, I would say. they're expensive, basically, is my contribution.
Does anyone not like the mailers? Like, personally, I think it's the best way to reach everybody, but does anybody not like it? Does anyone think that spending a budget?
I think most of them get tossed.
I would only do one. If it was me and coming out of my pocket, I would be willing to give it one shot, but I wouldn't give it more than that.
Yeah. We're not gonna need more than one shot at this point, you know?
I would suggest that we might think about signs, like political signs, that we could get people to put out on their lawns 2 or 3 weeks before the vote, that people would see on a daily basis as they went by.
We can put that on public space, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're voting on it, but we're not a candidate, can we put it right
As long
at
as
the
it's
polling?
not out for more than 12 weeks, yeah.
We're talking a
Does
couple
that
of weeks at the
count?
most.
If we put it right at the entrance to the,
For election season.
like
It
wherever our.
can't, if it's on the ballot, it can't be within 250 feet of the polling place.
There isn't no, there'll be one in June next year? No.
So what I'm hearing, John, would you be willing to put together that spreadsheet, get the guesstimates as best you can, because that's all they are, as far as incidentals? We know what it's gonna cost is, for North Star. So basically just guesstimates, on that, and, put together a spreadsheet, and if you could send it out to the committee prior to the next meeting. That way when we come here, because we are gonna have to make a decision at the next meeting.
Do any of our realtor friends here know about how much it costs to have those sort of yard signs made
They're
up?
not cheap. The kind of plasticky.
Yeah, that you stick in the
ones.
wire
Yeah.
and you.
They're probably like $20 a sign. If you do like a larger quantity, you might be able to get them cheaper. If you could do them with like cardboard, like,
Yeah,
more a political sign type.
yeah. Instead of the plastic, we only want them to last a couple of weeks. We
Yeah.
don't want them to be recycled.
Well, we may
three or
be,
four
we
elections.
may be better, instead of having, people put them in their yards, maybe we'd be better to like identify 10 or 15 spots throughout town
Right.
that are in kind of more prominent public
Strategic spots.
locations.
Yeah.
But
Could
yeah,
we maybe price out like time for printing and say what's your cheapest sign that would last 2 to 3 weeks?
yeah.
Yard
Just a heavy
sign sort of
cardboard.
thing. Just have an estimate on how much that would cost us for a
Let me do
one
that.
shot
I
deal.
know a printer. Let me, I'll research that, John, and send it to you.
Okay.
What it would cost for an average political type sign with a wire holder
Yeah.
that's gonna, take the weather for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
Cool.
Greg, how much does your truck cost?
Yeah, right? I can buy a bucket of paint, we can.
Sue, do you, should we
Give me a good
coordinate
excuse
to
to
make
drive it
sure we're
around.
on the same page with everything at some point, or do you feel like,
For which?
just in terms of everybody having the right budget numbers?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I think we would want that before the next
Very
meeting as well,
definitely.
just to make sure we've got a solid number from North Star.
Yeah,
Okay, so, yeah.
Contract value spent to date, projected
Mhm.
next budget year, fiscal year, July through June, boom, 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 right down
Yeah.
through.
So John, if you want to CC Sue and me when you
Sure.
put this together, we can make sure that
Or-
what's in our thing and what's in your thing are the same.
And do that maybe before sending it out to the committee, so
Happy
we can
to.
get the numbers settled.
All right. If there's nothing else on the budget status, Select Board workshop, I had just had a discussion with Sue about the interest that a Select Board member had after having viewed these meetings and also a Planning Board meeting. And I believe that, my understanding, Sue, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was a workshop with the planning board, with the comprehensive plan committee, that would be basically run by the selectmen, in order that we were, if I understand it correctly, on the same page regarding basically what ordinances might need to be in this next cycle as far as town meeting and or referendum.
Yeah, and for this year, I don't think you'll have ordinance change. It'll be for the following fiscal year that you would, I believe. Would that be correct?
I can tell you that's the purview of the select board. All we are is in an advisory capacity.
Right.
And that's likewise with the planning board. Having said that, and I believe I saw an email from you, Sue, saying that this would be at the February select board meeting.
I didn't hear back from literally anybody from either this committee, the select board, or the planning board as to what dates would work. So it's just going to be part of a select board meeting at this point. But I did hear back after sending it out to you and Joe and Kayla and Bob that Bob's at Disneyland that week.
In the January.
In the February.
In February.
Yeah, during that week.
Okay.
So I'll have to go back with Joe and say, what do you want to do with that?
So I will tell you that I don't want to blur the lines here between this committee and any personal interest in ordinances. The process is simply, as I understand it, any citizen of the town of Raymond can contact the code enforcement officer or the planning board directly and say, I would like you to consider this ordinance. And please bring it to the select board for consideration. Basically, my interest and was basically attending and watching the planning board and seeing that as far as for this year, my sense in monitoring those meetings, and we've got a planning board member here, and Sean attended the planning board meeting with myself to discuss this in November, what we thought might be some of the things that are coming on the horizon. And I think that was from the perspective of discussions that we've had here on the Comprehensive Plan Committee. That being said, I will tell you that we can get together with the select board and the planning board as individuals to speak about what we envision would be important. Or we could feel that this would be something, if they would like a representation from this committee, based on knowing what's on our agenda, what we've been looking at, that we appear as a committee or a representative of this committee. So we could go either way. As far as some of the things that piqued my concern, I will tell you, is basically that there was very little indication on the part of the planning board or the code enforcement department regarding anything more than, if I believe what the conversation was, it was from Alex from code enforcement was, we really don't have much for this year for us to discuss. We could clean up some language. There were a couple of citizens that had asked for particular ordinances to be considered. But my primary concern, and I won't speak for Sean, but I believe it was his interest as well, was really the implications of LD 2003. And the fact that as far as a timing situation is concerned, that goes into effect July 1st of this year, of next year, or this year.
This year.
This year. And so ordinances that would have to be on for the town meeting or a referendum would have to be submitted probably by March in order to make it at that point. And the process is the planning board would recommend it, and then the select board would ultimately decide what basically is going to be considered for a vote. My primary concern is, and I brought this up with the planning board, had to do with short-term rentals and the fact that accessory dwelling units will be approved as of July 1st of this year. And that there is no current ordinance that regulates those whatsoever. And I don't know that I want an ordinance to regulate it or not. All I was trying to do was to bring to the fore the fact that July 1st, this could take place. I believe the code enforcement officer mentioned at the December meeting of the planning board that he was looking at proposing potentially that Raymond has a 600-foot, am I correct in that, Greg?
Yep.
600-foot as far as where in the shorelands, where a accessory dwelling unit can be placed. And he did an estimate on that, looking at GIS and the like, and his estimate was currently under our ordinances right now, there's about 20 parcels in Raymond that would qualify that right now, no ordinance change whatsoever. They could basically build an accessory dwelling unit. The state requirement is 250 feet. So Raymond is well in excess of what the state says the setback has to be from lake frontage. Therefore, he estimated that were that change to go into place, and according to his statement, there were a number of people in the community that were in favor of that, that would impact some 80 parcels in the town.
81, I think he said.
Yeah. So were that to go forward, July 1st, if 50% of those individuals say, look, before anything else changes, I'm going to get an accessory dwelling unit on my parcel, that's 40 accessory dwelling units built within the lakeshore or the
Raymond Shoreline Zone.
shoreline zone.
Yeah.
And while he didn't think that was too significant, my personal thought is that that is a significant number of buildings to take place. And so I was just kind of bringing that up. I was also trying to poke the bear a little bit about, maybe an ordinance for short-term rentals has to be looked at in general, even if it's something like a licensing process, which has been discussed at the planning board, that would at least allow us to track these units. And so that was my feeling. I guess based on our appearance at the planning board, one of the selectmen watched that meeting and felt that we needed to all get together and make sure we were on the same page about where we're going with this.
Well, and I know one of the concerns of the select board is if some of those changes were put forth and adopted, what effects would that have on our staffing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I certainly understand that. That being said, I guess that my feeling was that there needs to be that discussion.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't go forward, then it doesn't speak to the staffing that's going to be required with LD 2003 for outside the shoreland. Because those are all going to require permit requests, if I understand it, in all of the other zones in the town. And that's going to happen July 1st. So that was my interest. Like I say, that is all separate from this committee, but to some extent it's not if what we're looking at is land use going forward. And, so no action taken this year. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a little short-sighted myself, but I'm okay with that. I don't know exactly then what would be achieved by us getting together and talking if in fact we're 12 to 24 months out before there's any proposal for ordinance changes. What I do know, and what I did bring up with the planning board, is that and I believe that I'm going to be pretty consistent with this. Once again, it'll depend on what the people in the town tell us, but having a target of 10% of any new construction in the town requiring affordable housing, I don't think that's going away. Everything that I see in the media says that that's not going away in the state. We need 80,000 more structures in the state by 2030. And I believe there was a comment from the town planner at the December planning board meeting that surprised me a little bit, because there was a discussion about that 10%. And what he basically said was that, well, you know, he could kind of see that being a necessity, but that you know, we got to take those in small bites. You know, we can't do all of this overnight. They're going to be small bites. And I will just tell you that in the 1992 comprehensive plan for the town of Raymond, there was a statement in that plan saying that we need 10% of all new construction in the town of Raymond to be 10% affordable housing. That was also the same request that was included in the 2004 comprehensive plan. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's probably going to be a request in the current revised comprehensive plan. So by incrementalism or by small bites, I would tell you, 2 or 3 decades of kicking this thing around and not taking any action on it, I believe requires someone to get behind this and say, you know, we've got to start thinking in those terms. I know we're not going to solve the housing problem with the comprehensive plan in the town of Raymond. I know that. But what I am saying is that it's long overdue to start there. So, there.
Small bites works, but somebody has to take the first bite.
I agree with that, absolutely. And like I say, it's not for lack of trying. It's been tried since 1992. So, and in the North Star's numbers up there, as far as housing and the median costs and the like and everything else, the question was asked to the planning board, well, what is? How can you define what's affordable? I got to tell you, housing and urban development, they've defined that a long time ago. You know, if you're under 80% the median household income, you qualify for HUD loans. And I can tell you, if I looked at North Star's numbers, the median median income for a family of 4 in Raymond is $89,350. That's the median, 80% of the median, $89,350. By that, I guess my understanding is that anybody who is sitting around this table right now that owns their own home, you probably couldn't afford to buy it today in Raymond. So anyway.
Yeah, there is a reason I don't live in Raymond.
Yeah, well, it is a beautiful
It's a gorgeous town.
It's a great town. So anyway,
Well, Peter, the shoreline zone includes all of Raymond Cape. It's more than 600 feet. The shoreline zone's the largest zone in the whole town.
yeah,
Put that in the perspective in terms of your numbers.
sure.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
But as far as, if I understand it, as far as, Greg, as far as that, the 600 feet on Raymond Cape, that can be 1,100.
Oh, yeah. All
Because
the way
it's a
across.
peninsula. So, I mean, I can understand why there'd be individuals who live on the Cape that are concerned
Yeah.
about that, especially when the state model says you only have to be 250.
Yep. We'll talk about it at the next planning board meeting.
So, I guess I'd close by saying, anyone who's interested, what is the February date?
It is the 13th, but since Bob can't make it for the planning board,
Yeah,
I'll be talking with Joe about, do we need to have it then?
yeah,
And I've kind of wondered through this, asking for this workshop, if it is a bit soon in the comprehensive plan committee schedule, because you're not ready really to put forth any suggestions for ordinance changes yet.
sure.
Have invitations been sent out to these boards to come to the workshop?
Just an email to the chairs so
Yeah.
far. Yeah.
So I guess what I'd ask is that there's nothing that prohibits individuals from going to a workshop. right? And-
Right, that's
and-
correct.
And that as well. So if I were to get an invitation, or it be posted that there's a workshop in February at the select board meeting, I could attend as an individual,
Oh, yeah.
and not necessarily representing the comprehensive plan. And I would encourage anyone who has any interest to do the same.
And
Please reach out to the other boards and committees to encourage people to come on the 20th.
Real quick, Pete, I remember hearing Chris say when he was here earlier in the fall, that because we had an ADU piece in our ordinance, that the impact of LD 2003 was going to be less. That because we had ordinance in place, that we wouldn't be required to adopt the whole hard line of 2003 in our ordinance, and I may have misheard that, but.
No, I don't think you did.
No, that's
Yes.
correct.
That's-
Were there other parts of the ordinance that we kind of unpacked with Chris in that conversation that weren't just the ADU, but more, I think if I'm remembering correctly, I think that there were other parts
Sure.
where yeah.
So as an example, if just getting onto the ADU part of it, if I own a piece of property,
Right, I'm talking about the, I'm talking about a different part, not specifically the ADU, but I think it's the
Density?
density, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was one of the pieces that Chris hadn't, and I don't wanna put words into his mouth, but I think that's one of the things that hadn't been considered as thoroughly, and Greg, you might know more than I
You're
do.
talking about double the acreage in the shoreline zone for building?
Honestly, I can't remember.
That might have been it.
So, I don't think I don't remember the conversation being wrapped up completely
Right.
in that code was all on board with having a full handle on LD 2003.
Right. There were still some unanswered questions.
and I guess what I was saying was, as an example, if I have a piece of property with a house on it and I knock it down,
Right, yeah. Yeah.
right? And can I put another house in an ADU on there? And my understanding is what the law says is that that's up to the town to decide.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been resolved. And I find many of those issues that are unresolved.
And they'll be resolved when somebody applies for the permit and the town
Says no.
Says no.
yeah,
Yeah.
or, yeah,
And then the individual has the right to then say, well, I want to go to court.
right.
Yeah.
But I think the example is even a little more extreme, right? Isn't there the ability to put up to 4
Right.
structures?
Correct.
Right. So I mean, an ADU is one thing; it's limited by size per our current ordinance to 700 feet. But if you're building 4 single-family homes on now a 1 single-family home lot, that seems a lot more obstructive.
Sure. And so it's not just the question of
Especially
an
in a
ADU,
shoreline.
it's a question of density.
Right.
You're challenging the whole density in the ordinances.
Well, can't you also convert like a single-family home into up to a 4-unit,
Yes.
multi-unit?
Yeah. And my understanding of the law is right now, you can't prohibit multi-dwelling units anywhere. So before we used to talk about, we need to have more 2 families in the town of Raymond. Well, that's not an issue anymore according to this law. According to this law, anybody can build a 2-family. And there's nothing that we can do about it. As far as addressing that in an ordinance, that's state law. I guess until someone wants to bring it to court. So anyway, I would just encourage anybody who's interested in attending this workshop, if in fact it happens.
if we happen.
Yeah. All right. The next meeting is February 7th. Everybody's good with that? No public comment?
We seem to be shy of public.
All right. Any committee members comment? Frank?
I met with Sharon Dotson today, the Raymond Beautification Committee, and I will be putting a report out. I'll be sending it to the planners, and I will also send everybody here a copy. I'm also meeting with the people at Levy Lane tomorrow. and I will send that report along. Sharon does not see a lot of positive things going to be happening with the beautification committee. She's at the point in her life where she needs to cut back. She only has one volunteer working with her right now. All they're going to be able to do right now is to do flowers and replace the spring flowers in the spring. She said there's at least 5 gardens down in 302 that need to be completely rebuilt. There really needs to be a new committee. And one of her concerns is that if someone who's put in charge of the beautification committee, it'd be someone who has some background in gardening and landscaping. It just can't be somebody's handed the position. They really need the knowledge of what needs to happen. She says that Don is at his point in his life. That's the gentleman that works for the town, that assists them in all of the things that they do, that he may not be long in that particular job because he's getting to that age as well. And she feels that someone in town needs to be trained or work with him to gain the knowledge that he has as to what needs to be done if the beautification committee is to continue. So it's not a lot of positive news coming out of that committee. So we may need to discuss that later on as we're looking at recommendations we're going to make.
Thanks, Frank. Any other comments from the committee? Seeing none, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? We're done.